shortly after the Nigerian government banned Twitter and threatened to prosecute citizens that use the social networking platform. The House of Representatives bowed to the demands of government for amendments to the extant Nigerian Press Council and National Broadcasting Commission laws. However, media practitioners in the country were quick to object to the move and accuse the government and legislature of attempting to contravene the Constitution and suppress press freedom. In a concerted action on Monday, all the national dailies in the country published a front-page advertorial with a bold headline, Information Blackout. The advertorial made it clear that the NPC and NBC Media Act amendment bills were geared against the right to free speech and information dissemination. Saying that they had stirred up the honestness, the House of Representatives that had started consideration of both bills was forced to back down yesterday. To discuss the implications of both bills and why there was so much opposition to them, we're now being joined by the editor-in-chief of the Guardian newspaper, Martins Oloja. Good morning, Martins. Good to see you. Welcome to the morning show.
Good morning.
Well, Martins, quickly, the Senate, or if you like, the House of Reps, has suspended the consideration of those bills classified as anti-media bills, indeed anti-freedom of expression bills, namely the plan to amend the Press Council Act and also the National Broadcasting Commission Act in a manner that the media establishment in Nigeria said, would be retrogressive and will be considered unacceptable. What are your thoughts on this, particularly in terms of the provisions of those bills as proposed, and also the solidarity that we saw in the last few days from the Nigerian media establishment?
I have taken professional notice of the word suspended. It's just suspended, that it is not over. They have suspended it, they can revive it anytime. They have suspended so many bills like that, and at an appropriate time, they can even pass it without recourse to any criticism or anybody. So they have just suspended it based on the reaction of the Nigerian Press Organization comprising Newspapers Proprietors Association of Nigeria, Nigerian Guild of Editors, and Nigeria Union of Journalists, because of the sustained criticism and the response that they have got. They suspended it and they are saying, no, we will not do anything. But even nobody knew when this one came. You recall that even when they did the public hearing on these obnoxious and toxic bills, they did not allow the Nigerian Guild of Editors representatives into the National Assembly premises to be part of the public hearing. The provisions, as you saw that so many newspapers, almost all the newspapers in Nigeria wrote editorials on this same thing yesterday because of the provisions that suddenly the information minister is going to give license to newspaper publishers in 21st century, and they are going to criminalize journalism. And in 21st century, and just as you cited, Dr. Abate, as you cited yesterday, you were trying to read some extracts from some of those editorials. Even our neighboring countries, like South Africa and even Ghana here, they have made specific provisions in their own constitution, say, just like the First Amendment in the one of the United States, that the Congress, their own assembly, their parliament, shall not make any law to constrain freedom of expression from where we get freedom of the press. It's unfortunate that our own legislators, who are enjoying what the press did in since 1993, the press operatives have been in the trenches fighting for democracy they are enjoying. They now want to legislate. They now want to criminalize journalism. Journalism, I think we need to be stressing this from time to time, that journalism practice is not just business. It's a constitutional the Constitution provides for the practice of journalism. That is why it is the fourth estate of the realm. Is provided for in section 22. And I think our legislators need to know. We should not take it for granted that they know section 22 and section 39. Just guarantee this, how to establish this. What the Constitution has provided for, why is there any subsidiary legislation? So the way they do not want to respect the rule of law is astounding. It's not acceptable. And that is why you see this solidarity. That is why you see this cooperation within the industry, that one, we will not allow the present leaders in Nigeria to criminalize journalism, because journalism practice is constitutional. It's not something that we just do as business. And in 21st century, in my own research, I noted that modern governments that want to do this thing do not have Ministry of Information anymore. Since 2014, Ghana merged information with communication. That's what we have, and it is because the Ministry of Information is there at this time. That is why they want to constitute themselves into a judicial body to start fining journalists. You pay as much as 250,000 for publishing a story that is not even scrutinized, that you just declare as fake news through a council that will be filled with government officials. You can pay as much as 10 million naira at such a time like this without any court process. You just pay for publishing a story like that in 21st century in this small world. And I think it's not acceptable. That is why, Dr. Babati, that is why you find this kind of response, that at this time we do not need this. And then we need to tell members of the public that freedom of the press is not on its own. Freedom of the press derives from freedom of expression. Freedom of expression is what gives vent to freedom of the press. What they want to take away is not freedom of the press, it's freedom of expression, which is a core value in any democracy. If you take away freedom of expression, people will not be well informed to make the choice that we need to make to elect good people. We will not be in a position to examine deviations, to examine whatever they are not doing well. Journalism is not something they should fear. It is journalism that can strengthen democracy through investigation, because what we look at is what is unusual in any system. If there is any systemic failure, if there is any deviation, if there is some form of corruption anywhere, it is journalism that can help to expose that. They are now looking for a way of getting journalists to cover up instead of covering. Our responsibility is covering, not covering up. Why shouldn't we cover what is happening? Why shouldn't we report what is there according to section 22? Our own is to monitor governance and hold public officers and public institutions to account. And that cannot be criminalized. No subsidiary legislation can take that one away. That was why the NPO met and took this decision. You can see the solidarity. The House is not divided against itself. They say, no, this is a threat to journalism practice. And then we need to send this message to the people in power, that no government from the time of the colonial administration has survived this. This is not new. Even the colonial administration did this thing, they failed. The press survived them. Even the Western regional government in this same country did it in a time of crisis. The press survived them. We will survive this, but we don't need to sit down. We want to tell the people in authority that what they are doing, they cannot succeed, because it is It has never happened that the press has failed. In 2018, specifically on August 16, when even the United States democracy faced some threat, 350 newspapers and magazines in the United States did what we are doing. They did it. They wrote editorial on the same day, 16th August 2018. It was suggested by the Boston Globe to all of them, and they took it when they faced existential threat like this by their own commander-in-chief, who was talking about fake news, who was just deriding the press. But the press survived him. Where is the president now? He's gone. So in the same vein, they need to learn some lessons from this one, that the Nigerian press, the Nigerian media generally will not tolerate this, and the people who are sponsoring this bill, who are suspending it, they don't have to suspend it. They need to do something. First and foremost, that information ministry that is supposed to be this is not deriding the current holders of the office. We are just talking about what happens in 21st century. The Ministry of Information is not needed. It's Ministry of Communication, as they did in Ghana. They merged information and communication in 2014 by the President Mahama. They did it in South Africa. They have Ministry of Communication and Digital Technologies. That's what we need. They need to merge this thing so that they allow free press. Look at our NTA. Look at our own NTA and Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria. They are public broadcasters, like the BBC. BBC is not being supervised by any Ministry of Information. They just one way or the other, they have a relationship with the Department of Culture. And from time to time, you see that the Department of Culture takes BBC to Parliament when they feel that they are too hard on government policies. But not to control, you want to control, you want to give license before you can publish a newspaper, you want to strengthen even NBC with draconian laws to criminalize journalism. It is not done. And I think we need to learn that lesson. The first thing to do in reforming the information management process is to look at 21st century. If they don't want us to call them the illiterates of the 21st century, as Alvin Toffler has told us, the illiterates of the 21st century, they should note, according to Alvin Toffler, will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. If, as I wrote in one of my columns, Inside Stuff, if they do not reform their processes in 21st century, because they don't reform it to make Ministry of Information and Communication to be one, so that they will not be eyeing all these things. Communication Technology Ministry will not be looking at how to do this. They should do it and reform it so that we will be true leader of the black nation. We are the most populous black nation on earth. Nigeria is not just any country.
I'm not sure if you can hear me. I'm trying to get a question in, if I may.
Yeah.
Right, thank you. Now, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, was at an event on Monday, I believe it was, and he gave assurances that he would not be a part of any bill to gag the press, and I could feel a however coming, and it arrived. He said that, however, the press does need to be regulated, and like you described the press, he used the same term, the fourth estate of the realm is extremely important. It must be regulated, as freedom of expression is not absolute. To paraphrase the comments that he made, or to summarize the comments that he made there. What is your reaction to that?
Tudu, thank you for that question. If you get back to the editorial that The Guardian wrote in this connection yesterday, you will find a line there that from what we got from MPO, it is not that we do not want to be regulated. The regulation issue has been there. It's even in Supreme Court. Even in one of the editorials yesterday, you will see a reference to a Supreme Court case on this thing. But the current this press council, whose law they are amending, is the executive secretary is appointed by the president, and even the amendment they want to do, this one is appointed by the president. Even media nominees will be media nominees in the proposed council in this law, in this bill, will be nominated by the president. Everything, government appointment. So the thing is this: it is not because the press is afraid of regulation, but we don't want any regulation that will take away freedom of expression. We do not want any regulation that will make the government the accuser, the prosecutor, and the judge. We do not want any regulation that will make us to be subservient. We are talking about independent journalism that will strengthen democracy. Any independent journalism taking its own power from freedom of expression, that's a universal human right, will not be the one that will get its own license from government to publish a newspaper, and then the government will be watching you and they saying, no, this thing you have published is fake news, pay 10 million. No, we want regulation, but it must be properly done. So the state officials and our members of the legislature should have discussion with the stakeholders, bring them to a table, let us discuss, withdraw the case from Supreme Court, let's discuss. Regulation everywhere, they are regulating everywhere, but the regulation should not be the one that will be inconsistent with the provision of the Constitution, which empowers the press to monitor governance and hold people, public officers to account. So let's clarify that. We are not afraid of regulation, but the regulation must be done within the provision of the law that allows freedom of expression.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Martin Oloja. The House of Rep member, Honorable Adebumi, yesterday was on television, and he said he suspended the bill, that he'll go back and talk to stakeholders. Has he started talking to stakeholders? And secondly, by extension also, a lot of people too are looking at the fact that how are laws even made with the regulators of the broadcast sector, like the NBC? There had been a back and forth as regards the new code of the NBC. It was written, and a lot of people said, did not do the bidding of those in the industry. Is there going to be any push as regards that? And as Mr. Odebumi started talking to the stakeholders, because somebody will have thought Mr. Odebumi should have spoken to the stakeholders before he brought this bill forward in the first place. Maybe he forgot that time.
Brother, let us just advise them, not talking on television or talking when people are there. Organization, planning, strategic planning, getting stakeholder participation, getting people to the table to agree is not an easy thing. This is what he should have done. He should have consulted widely. I'm not a sycophant, but I am proud to say that the Nigerian press has some robustness that you can't take away, even in the world. There are so many educated journalists, so many academics, even in the media. So many people who are ready to listen, but these state actors are not ready to talk. They want protection. What is it that they are hiding? What is it that they don't want to be reported? What is it? It's an open world. It's a small world now. There are digital ears. All over these walls around us here, there are digital ears. These walls have digital ears now. You can't hide anything. So I think they need to know that they need to sit down. The legislator who is said to have sponsored this one, that is the first we see. If he wants to talk to people, he should talk to the people who sponsored the advert we have been discussing, and the people who sponsored the editorials. The editorials were not just sponsored like that because of a threat to the profession, threat to democracy, and threat to development. Because if people do not have information that they want to suppress, there won't be robust democracy. That we won't get democracy that will deliver a service to the people. So this is exactly what they need to know. They need to get people together, not by announcing it, not by telephone call. They should get people together to discuss. No, we need to regulate the media. There are existing laws that you can use to redress whatever we have done wrong. Even every day we find in the newspapers, we correct our errors. If there is anything, the right to reply is there. The criminal code is there, the penal code is there, the libel is there, slander is there, defamation, so many laws. They want to add more laws. What we advocated yesterday, for instance, in our own editorial at The Guardian, is that they even need to sit down to repeal most of these laws that impede freedom of expression in Nigeria. Look at this Cyber Act. The Cyber Act, you see a human rights body has listed more than 50 cases where they have been harassing bloggers and social media, citizen journalists and what have you. So we need to look at this thing, that you don't need to impede the press if you want democracy to develop. They should sit down and strengthen Nigerian Press Council. It's not about just the Press Council. They should sit down to get the provision, to get stakeholder participation, so that everybody will agree to provisions. So say, look, we want to be regulated. We don't want to be a watchdog that should not be watched. All over the world, it's a small world. I think they need to look at the reform of the processes. As I suggested earlier, that Information and Communication Ministry should be matched to reflect what happens in most parts of the world, where there is development, where there is democracy. If you want to strengthen it, if you want to strengthen this democracy, you must sit down and do something to get the people to talk, to get the people to be angry, to get the people to express themselves, to get the people to say, look, this is the way we want you to go, Mr. President, Mr. Legislator, Mr. Speaker, Mr. President of the Senate. You cannot continue to behave like this. This is what makes democracy to be robust, to deliver development to any country. For us, it's critical because we are the most populous black nation on earth. We are supposed to lead the black world. We are supposed to develop a public broadcaster like NTA or any other, that they are supposed to match NTA and FRCN to a public broadcaster that will be representing the black world, not by constraining information. No, they should even leave NTA and FRCN alone to be like the BBC. To be a public broadcaster is not just the money that they need. They need freedom to operate.
Martins, yes, thank you for stating all the basic principles. But all of this is not new. We're back to 1984 all of a sudden. In 1984, this same president was head of state. He came up with Decree 4, talking about false accusations. And you know what happened with that. In 1992, the Babangida administration, if you like, government, came up with this Nigerian Press Council. And the big argument at the time by the media establishment in Nigeria was that, no, the media will not allow any kind of censorship. The resort was a resort to self-regulation. And indeed, within the media establishment in Nigeria, every group, Guild of Editors, NUJ, NPA, there are codes in terms of practice and what is acceptable. Now, for the benefit of our viewers, now, the people in government say you can't have a media establishment that is not regulated. How well have we done as journalists, as media houses, in terms of this self-censorship, or if you like, self-regulation? That's one leg of it. The second leg of it, if you look at the NBC Act, the major amendment there, beyond all the controversies about what was done previously when the broadcasting code was edited, and there are insinuations that it was done by just one person, but the current amendment is about social media. Now, what are your thoughts with regard to the attempt to rein in the social media in Nigeria, from Twitter to the regulatory options that have been put on the table? Those two issues.
Doctor, thank you. This self-regulation, you yourself have been part of it. When you set up the one even by the late Alade Odunewu, editor's editor, you know, the various stages like that, it will have culminated every effort. Like every editor has a way of doing. That's why we call editors gatekeepers. They have a way of regulating its own conduct so that we do not breach existing laws. We have our own ways as editors to do that. Every media house has its own code of ethics. You have house style that you follow. You have a way not to use this, not to use that word, not to use that word, so that you are neutral. We have our own ways, and you, as it was said earlier, you know that NUJ, Nigerian Guild of Editors, and all this, we have a professional code of ethics that you should not receive this, you should not do this, you should not do that. Now, if you look at the provisions that they want to include in the new bill, the code of practice will now be decided by the Minister of Information. Where is that done? What should be done instead of looking at all this is just come together, discuss with the stakeholders to have a regulatory framework that will be acceptable to everyone. You have enough elders. Uncle Sam, you see all this Kabiru Yusuf, Uncle Sam, all this Mrs. the lady Medini, Ibru. These are respected people. When they sit down, when they listen to your own presentation, and we agree with you. They are respected people. They know what they are doing. Look at John Kure, Eku, Dan Agbese. Just mention there. In the media, we have elders, reasonable elders, who will listen when we find people talking to us truthfully. We'll listen. So for social media, you know, this conversation will go on. We want to regulate social media. These are people who operate in the clouds. You know, all over the world, the control is there. Even in the developed world, EU Parliament are discussed, why do you regulate people who operate in the clouds? People who just, once you have access to this thing, we're discussing this citizen journalism. But then, there are existing laws that you can use to regulate people you can see around. The way they practice this thing, the way they break news, what they say. If it is not true, you have tracking devices now. All media houses are training their desks to track fake news. You know, some people specialize in this fake news. You cannot just say you have suspended them. If you suspend this one now, they go on another platform to break the same news. So I think our public officers need to calm down and think through what others are doing. Even, you know, the leader of the freest world, quote unquote, in the United States, they wanted to regulate Twitter. They also suspended his own account. He wanted to do something. But because of the First Amendment, because of the way they take freedom of the press, because of the way one of their leaders also said that, look, I would prefer to have newspapers without government rather than having government without newspaper. That's just to strengthen what the media can do, that it is the freedom of expression will strengthen security of state. Some of their John Adam said that. Wow. So I think that we need to calm down, not to be carried away by what these social media people are doing around the world. We need to look at what the media generally is doing, and this regulatory framework that is causing this controversy. We need to sit down, not by sitting down with pressmen to come and cover what they do. We need to sit down and lock ourselves up and do something.
On that note, Martins, we would like to thank you very much.
To the glory of God's name, we need to do something.
Thank you very much, and thank you for quoting Thomas Jefferson. We would rather have a country with newspapers rather than a country without newspapers. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.